Hello, everyone, and welcome to Making Sense of UX Research. I am one of your co-hosts today, Nicholas Aramouni. I am head of brand experience here at Userlytics. If you don't know what Userlytics is, I'll jump into that soon. But before we go any further, I do want to throw it over to my lovely co-host.
I don't know how often I've been described as lovely, but appreciate it. I'm Zak Naylor. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Aurelius. Been working in the UX research product strategy field for a little more than 15 years and happy to chat about this today.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Zak has got some wonderful things going on at Aurelius. We'll jump into that in a second, but really excited to be doing this. Zak and I recently put together a blog post about how do you make sense of UX research and thought, let's talk about it too. Let's just give everyone a refresher. Let's jump into some of the core technologies and some of the key themes. So that's really what today is about. And speaking of that, Zak, would love to hear a bit more about Aurelius. If you could just tell people a bit about what it is to get started.
Yeah, for sure. So Aurelius is often referred to as a UX research repository, but really what Aurelius does is two things. Folks typically come to us to help them gather research data, tag it, analyze it, make sense of it. And then, Aurelius is really a platform that helps you turn that into insights and action. Now, by doing all of that in Aurelius, you are building a central place where you can search and share and reorganize all of that, which is kind of where the repository comes in. So there's really two big problems that we help folks solve, but we're often referred to as a repository.
And that sort of tag to that UX repository is, I think, what kind of brought us together. Many may say we're complementary to each other, and I guess in doing that, I'll explain what Userlytics is. So Userlytics is an all-in-one testing platform. And really what that means is you have a wide array of access to different methodologies and test types, considered all-in-one because you can recruit on the platform. You get access to 2 million participants globally, which you can get right from programming your screeners on there. And long list of features on there, eye tracking, sentiment analysis. Most recently, we've added in a new AI feature, first of its kind in the industry, hooray, where you get to analyze results, click of a button. So together, these two sort of tools complement each other. And I know that you're saying sometimes you're branded as a repository. It's much more. I know we're going to jump into that in a minute, but just to let the audience know what we want to cover today, of course, talking about the right tools to use in UX. Also want to talk a bit about the role of structuring the importance of structuring findings in a way that's cohesive and how you deliver those insights, but also how you store them to make sense of how you build upon your research journey. And of course, the other important part, how do you communicate these dang findings in a way that that goes, gets the credibility it deserves, because UX research always needs more buy-in. So before we go into more content, Zak, I want to ask you, and I have some thoughts on this. What does it mean to choose the right tools? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a fairly complicated question, and there's this really popular thing in UX culture where everybody says the answer is always it depends. And it is going to be highly dependent on your team. What I usually tell people is figure out exactly what it is your team's trying to do, and then, set goals and criteria for choosing tools that will help you accelerate that or do that faster and easier. And so, it really just comes down to really understanding what the function of, user research is at your company, how your team is going about it today, and any ways that you feel like you can improve, and then finding tools and technology that you can plug into that to improve that process, or improve analysis, like you were saying, improve insights creation, or improve sharing and evangelization of that stuff, right? And the one thing that I usually tell people is really important is that there is no tool that's going to solve all your problems. But having the right ones in place, like I said, are actually going to accelerate that research practice that you have, and it's going to help you accomplish a lot of those things, scale your practice, get more buy-in, have a greater impact at your organization with the insights that you have.
Yeah, well put. I think the value there too specifically is choosing the right tool for the job. Like you said, when you're choosing exactly what it is you want to scale out. And I think the reason that's important is because there's tons of tools out there that you could use. Zoom, which we're using right now, could be used for UX interviews or IDIs. but is it a UX testing tool? Now I understand the need to be creative, but there are tools, like for instance, SurveyMonkey does surveys specifically. You know where to go to solve that problem. There are tools that are made for communication, and there's tools that are made specifically for what we're trying to do. So when you say that to me, no one tool solves all the problems. That's definitely true. And I also think it is important that we look at which tools actually do what we need them to do as a whole, what the real offering is. And actually on that extension, Aurelius being partially repository, talking a bit about findings being structured in a way and well organized. Now, from my perspective, that's the most important thing you can do from the very beginning. Organize your findings, identify those themes, move forward with that as much as we can to have a linear process. Now, it's never linear, but the whole idea here is to find pain points and build off of them. And as an extension of that, Zach, I know you have some thoughts on what that means as well. So I want to throw that over to you.
Yeah. Well, just to address the one point that you made, it's actually really, really important because there is a lot of tools that we get access to when we just work in any organization. Word, Slack, Zoom, things like that. And a lot of times we just use those and apply them the best way that we can to do the job. But you're absolutely right. They're not necessarily built specifically for that purpose. And that's where you can start to really unlock a lot more potential and have that greater impact specific to your research practice. Now, in terms of like setting things up and structuring that right out of the gate, that always for me starts with establishing really good goals. That's really good goals for what research is meant to be doing in your organization. That's understanding your stakeholders, their needs, what their expectations are, and how they want to apply research, how they expect to apply research. Because it's one thing for us to say, here's what research does, but if it's not meeting the needs of the business, we're never actually going to have the impact and influence that people hope to. So for me, it always starts there, because really, if you do that well, the rest of it's going to become really clear.
Yeah.
As you take these next steps, you can always draw it back to say, we agreed this is what we're trying to do. And so, here's why we want to choose this tool, or here's why these insights are important, or here's why we're doing this research. I mean, all of these questions can start to get answered by really clear goals.
That foundational element, so important. I've worked as a consultant in UX research. For those of you who don't know, I come from a UX research background in all sorts of different industries. And it'd be surprising, Zach, how many times you talk to a client or somebody who needs help, and you kind of realize they haven't done the foundationals. They haven't done the fundamentals. They still don't have a customer persona. They still don't know who that target is. And if they do, there's too many of them. Things don't make sense. And I think from just a very basic level, how do you make sense of UX research? It has to come with having a strategy. And again, it's never going to go like this. It's going to go like this. But the only way to build things up is to know where you're starting from and test on the data, right? Data is the lifeblood of what we do, no matter if you're on design, research, whatever element of UX that you're in. It's really essential, I think, from my perspective, that foundationals are done, roadmaps are done, and that the next goal may always change, but a willingness to change is a big thing. And something I feel like used to get talked about a lot, but maybe not so much now, is the need to diversify testing. What that means is you see people that will run, for instance, Zach, 15 qualitative studies, grab the insights, they keep them, and they've got them organized, they've got them structured, but they're missing so much information. People forget that quantitative and qualitative aren't necessarily, they shouldn't be used exclusively. They should be used together.
Yeah.
Close those gaps in, right? The more data that you have to support the why, the more you have to support the how and the what. And I feel like sometimes that gets overlooked too. So even having the best plan means knowing that you have to be diverse in your approach.
Yeah.
To avoid the gaps.
Yeah, completely agree on that. I've also talked about it in the very same way, what versus why. So a lot of things like analytics or even more quantitative survey type stuff can tell us what's happening, with existing products and services and things like that, but it's not really going to give you why. And it's interesting to me that you sometimes do see that split where, I think especially business folks tend to really like the quantitative because you can do it faster at scale, and it gives you something that feels more confident because it's a measurable outcome, or what feels like a measurable outcome. But that's not always the case. You know what I mean? And to make the best decision, you need to have a 360 picture understanding of why you're seeing what you're seeing. So it's absolutely a step in the process. I wouldn't say it's exclusive. There are situations where quantitative research, quantitative testing can get you the answer you're looking for, but a lot of times it's not going to be enough.
Super interesting, because I feel like the world of when you hear business analytics, I almost feel like the undertone to that, you go, like you said, numbers, stats, right? That's, you're typically thinking, if you're working in analytics and marketing, you're thinking, what do my ad spends look like? What do my costs per click, or whatever that is? And there's always that, like, what about the conversion aspect, that qualitative, like, why did someone choose this call to action? Why? And so I think you said it best. There's a huge need to sort of merge those things together. And again, a good point. There's a time and place for both. And, you know, I don't think we're either going to explain to people what that means right now for them, but
Yeah.
goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is though, again, if you set up really clear goals on what we're trying to learn, what questions we're trying to answer, you can start to make better decisions and suggestions on the method, the tool, the application to get that answer. And you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that if you haven't established a shared understanding from everybody, your stakeholders, your team, everybody, of this is exactly what we're trying to do, so that you can together choose this is the approach, or this, you know, it is diversified testing, or it's one or the other, whatever the case may be.
That sort of ties into where we started, which is data is the lifeblood, right? Let data make the decisions for you. You make that plan, data tells you, you know, 90% of people do this, don't know why. Now you know you have to make that quick iteration, dive into that.
Yep.
And I know we briefly touched on tools, but modern era, the world we're living in, technology is making it, wait, I want to say easier, I want to say simpler, because technology has its ups and downs, but technology is making it simpler. So I do want to give everyone a chance to see exactly what Aurelius offers before we kind of show our Userlytics. So ship it over to you to do that right away.
Aurelius is a place where you can gather all your research notes and data to help you capture insights faster, turn them into action, and then search and share everything all in one place. We have rich note-taking and tagging features. You can even drag an interview right into Aurelius and transcribe it with near-human accuracy. If you want, you can create clips and highlight reels to attach to insights and reports later as supporting data. Once you have all that research in Aurelius, you can quickly find patterns and themes using things like our automatic keyword analysis, or even searching across all of your interviews or research by keyword. From there, you can even tag things in bulk, which is going to help you very quickly find patterns and themes you can spend time on later. The tags page is going to help you slice and dice data to further break down the things that you learned in the data that you tagged. Where you can come in here, see everything you tagged. You're going to get all those notes and data just like you would in a big spreadsheet or post-it notes on the wall. We show you related tags in that data where you can very quickly filter and segment off of that to speed up analysis. We do the automatic keyword analysis here as well. And all of these things are very flexible, just like the notes page, where you can select all those notes that match and work with them, tagging in bulk and even capturing insights. Now, if you prefer to do analysis in a more visual way, you can use our analysis board, and it's going to help you drag and drop notes to create themes of data just like you would creating an affinity diagram with post-it notes on the wall or a digital whiteboard. Capturing insights is critical for UX researchers. Key insights in Aurelius are one of the most powerful tools available. They let you create findings with supporting quotes, notes, data, clips, highlight reels, or any documents to really share the rich context of what you learned and why it matters. You can then take insights and turn them into action with recommendations, where you can say, here are the things that we should do, And here's why. Actually linking supporting key insights to those recommendations, just like you might do in a report or some kind of slide deck today. Now, key insights and recommendations are both findable by keywords or tags across all of your studies. So you're actually creating a research repository simply by doing your work in Aurelius. You can find research across multiple studies, everything you have in Aurelius, with the universal search, where we can come in here and find anything we want by keywords, tags, or both. And we're going to show you raw notes, parts of transcripts, all of this data from every study you have, of course, any documents, clips, highlight reels, as well as key insights and recommendations from every single study you have. Now, when you find everything you're looking for, you can organize it all, even across projects, by using collections. Collections help you keep your research organized by topic, persona, product, feature, department, all of these things. You can take key insights from every study and organize them into a collection about a certain product or theme. Any recommendations you've made about that can all live in here, as well as any clips and highlight reels. These things can live in multiple collections at one time. You can organize it across all of your studies, and then you can even share collections by email with anyone, and they don't even need an account to see it.
Just to give you a brief overview of how Userlytics prioritizes insight and results, take a quick look at the dashboard. See on the left here, you can actually create your own internal teams. So if there's a lot of people that work at your company, or a lot of people actually perhaps working on projects at once, you can organize them right here on the left-hand side, and even go a step further and put them into projects. So let's say you're testing one major asset on your platform. You can create a project here and then add different teams into the project folders to help customize exactly who is looking at what. Now, when you've finished these tests, all your insights are recorded under your project folder. Due to privacy concerns, I cannot show you, but know that whether it's qualitative video or it's quantitative metrics, under your different studies that you'll see on your right-hand side here, all your metrics will be stored on the platform, and you can go ahead and share that with your team. You can invite different people to see it, stakeholders, all on the platform, just that simple. We do want to emphasize how important it is to share UX insight, especially through Userlytics and Aurelius. We understand how important it is, but let's take a quick look at the platform here. So let's say you want to create a study and really get some results going. Relatively simple. Go ahead, select a different team. For example's sake, we'll do this. And here you'll see it's going to take us right to a screen where we choose, is it moderated, unmoderated, quantitative, whatever that looks like. We'll choose moderated for here. Everything you need is clicks of a button away. So naming your study, how long you want the sessions to be. You want to recruit from us because we have a panel of 2.1 million global participants, and you can actually screen participants right here from the study builder. How many participants do you want? Where do you want them to be from? Age, gender. You can go a step further: education, employment, social networking access, family status. All that's there. That way you can just focus on getting the results. Scheduling is as simple as you imagine it to be. Open up a time slot by hitting create on different time frame. Voila. And then step further, we know that asking the right questions is so important to making sense of UX research, which is why we have so many different question types that are all actually click and drop, plug and play. On the left-hand side here, you can choose from the most commonly asked questions based on the different question types. If it's satisfaction, after using this product, how satisfied are you? You can, let's say you want that question, hit add right there into the study builder. You want to create your own, go here, click add activity. Let's say you want to add a multiple choice. Copy paste your question into here. Here are all your responses. There's all your display logic. You can randomize options. You can add URLs. All that different stuff is right here on the platform, just to make sure that you're focusing on getting to the insights. Now, there's a few things we can't quite show you, but extensive amount of features. Some of the things that exist on this platform that you don't see: a very exclusive AI analysis tool. So if you've run a video study, which we would be doing here in this moderated case, based on what we've chosen here, we're recording a desktop. you would actually be able to, after running a study, select the AI analysis, and based on all the questions that were asked, the tool would actually provide you with 4 or 5 key summarized insights from all the different question types from each participant. So it would just boom, pop up right for you, just like that. Also, we have sentiment analysis on this platform. We have eye tracking. We've got qualitative metric measurements. We have proprietary ULX score, which is actually measuring different assets against 18 industry-leading constructs. Might sound confusing, but it's really simple. It's a baseline diagnostic score. Really interesting stuff. We also here, helping you emphasize your UX research, have highlight reels. So you can go in based on the qualitative videos, select a different video, that a different time frame of a video, create a title out of it. Maybe you're searching by activity. You can see here there's different studies, and voila, create a clip just like that. And you can take this, copy paste it. This is really good for sharing with stakeholders. You can do it by tag, and just really focusing in on the UX research. Now, that's not all of it, but that's just some of the ways Userlytics is designed to help you make sense of UX research. All right, so a quick look at 2 platforms and how they can really help you make UX testing, well, make sense. That's the whole reason why we're here. But there is another step here. You can do all the testing in the world if you want, get all the insights in the world if you want, but the most important thing we should be doing with our insights is sharing them. And Zach, I want to give you a chance to talk about what that means to you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've used this analogy before where, when people say if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody, and nobody's around, does it make a sound? And it's like, if you gather great insights, but they don't get to the people who, can use them to make decisions, is it going to have an impact? And I think it's very similar, right? So there's a really big piece to this where if you're great at your craft and you're doing great research and you're gathering insights that matter, that isn't going to have the impact that it ought to if you haven't established expectations on how things are going to get communicated, right? So regular timing, maybe cadence, the format that it's going to take, and how people should expect to receive research and be able to act on this stuff. So when we think about, a lot of research kind of starts certainly in a project or a self-contained effort. We say we're going to do 15 interviews to learn about X, Y, and Z to help inform, this goal that we have. If you've done that, you're off to a great start. It would make sense for the expectations to be, once that project is finished, that we're actually going to share that stuff. Maybe that comes in the form of a report, a readout, a meeting, something like that, right? The thing is, though, you should be keeping in touch with your stakeholders and your business partners through the entire life cycle, throughout the year, even as you're doing other research and things like that, right? So you're continuously gathering insights. These things are going to be relevant to those business partners, to those stakeholders, even when they haven't specifically asked you for a project. And this is the key, right? And this is where a lot of research gets lost. So for example, you're going to do a project, you're going to answer hopefully all the questions or meet all the goals of that individual project. And you're going to be learning things that may not even be relevant to the group you're working with, or the stakeholder, or the team that asked for this research. So, the thing is, you're going to be learning stuff by certain topics, certain themes across products, features, services, personas in your entire company, or maybe even things that are relevant to another team or department. You're going to want to share those on a regular communication schedule. Now, that can take place in a lot of different ways, right? And it can actually be structured. So these can be things that you're emailing out after the fact. These can be things where you're having recurring meetings every month, every quarter, twice a year, whatever works for your company. But even having those recurring meetings, or that, I've heard of people doing things like email newsletters, even stuff like that. It sets the expectation of, there's research continuously happening, whether I asked for it or not, maybe as a business partner or stakeholder, and I can expect to hear things about that. And it also establishes a good cadence for your team to not only be a lot more strict about how you're organizing these insights and that data, and how often you need to be reviewing that in order for it to be getting to the right places and having an impact that it ought to.
Yeah, I think when you say getting to the right places, I think there's so many layers there. As someone who practiced UX research and still does, there's the right person for the right insight that you definitely want to share information with. But I find it so valuable that we try to include as many people as we can in that process. Like you said, sometimes you're going to find out more information by sharing insights with other people from different departments, whether that's sometimes there's two UX research teams on the same company. Sometimes it's just completely different departments. But the general idea, I think, is to get as many people involved. Now, we could talk about the buy-in that comes as a byproduct of having people review insights, go over that information, and really have it come to life. But I've always found something interesting on the other side of like sharing results is like I think I had a conversation with a colleague of mine when I was at an event, and I kind of said to them, wouldn't it be so good if we could get stakeholders to just be a participant on a test? And so when they're looking at the insights of that test, they can understand what that participant went through when they were testing, where the insights actually were, and it kind of forces them to be empathetic to the results. It creates a connection. And I think that's kind of stuck with me. I think there's always been value there and trying to get more people involved with the insight process, but really immersing them in that. And by extension, storytelling is a huge part of how you share your insights, from my perspective.
Sure.
When Kobe Bryant unfortunately passed away, one of the interviews he did, he said he wrote a book because he knew that storytelling was the best way to connect to people. And when it comes to data and sharing insights, that's true. It's always stuck with me. Are we choosing the right graphs? Are we choosing the right tables? Is it visualized correctly? So as you're sharing them with different departments, know your audience and weave in. I mean, most of us remember what happens in The Lion King, even though we maybe watched it 50 years ago or 30 years ago. It's the story part. Now, we're not writing The Lion King here, but I think that's just always stuck to me too, in terms of how we have impactful result sharing by and large.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I'll tie that all the way back to where we started too, where if you've established really good goals and it's things that are important to your stakeholders in the project at that time, but also goals that they have for their product or their business area, or whatever the case may be. As you're sharing insights, you can say, here's things that we learned, and it matters because it helps you do this. That's going to get somebody's attention a lot more than just simply saying, hey, we learned something you might be interested in. Right. So there's that part of it. And then it can go all the way down where you're saying, here's the thing we learned.
Yeah.
And I think what you were suggesting is having the right supporting data or evidence or, rich context that backs that up. So those can be things like clips, highlight reels, attached quotes. All of these things can be part of what we would consider a key insight, certainly in Aurelius. When you're sharing that stuff, like you said, know your audience. They might not care about the rigor and craft of the research planning and execution that you did. They want answers to questions so they can do that better. If you haven't started by understanding that, you can't deliver the insights that matter to them, and you're not going to have as great of an impact as you should.
Super punchy, super true. And I think platforms like Aurelius, Userlytics, and many more make that sort of insight sharing and following that line again, like you said, where you start from to how do you figure out what people are actually after and what they want solved. Platforms, tools, technology all make that so much more impactful, so much more punchy. And I think that's something everyone should sort of take away too, is use the right tools for this part too. It's not just about, we've heard a lot about democratized research in the last 4 or 5 years. It doesn't just mean the researchers, it means sharing the insights too. These things need to be pushed out. They need to be out. They need to be in people's faces. And one thing you said that stood out there to me as well too is giving people, hey, this solves your problem. There's an old saying that if you can get a problem down on paper, you've solved 50% of the problem. Now, if you can tell, hey, I've solved the problem, well, now you have your action steps, right? There's your next step. You have a better idea, and it sort of all ties together. So Zach, a lot covered in a pretty short amount of time, but I think super impactful. And I think people can refer back to this video and also refer back to the blog post. I know we talked about diversified testing technologies. We talked about having data layers, but I think there's a really important part about technology, especially with digital products here. And I know that's something that we're both passionate about, but I want to, in kind of closing, pass it on to you about the importance of making sense of research when it comes to digital products here.
For sure. One of the things that you just said, I think ties it in really well when you say action. So what? What do you do about this? You know, as researchers, I think sometimes folks are hesitant to share suggestions or recommendations to come out of research. They just want to share, here's what we learned. You know, you're a person who interpreted this data, who works at that company, who understands the people it serves and the product that's offered. You can share that opinion, that recommendation, that action item, that suggestion, that next step, because you're actually very well equipped to do so. You can say, I've helped you understand what we're trying to do. I've given you some insights with data that answers that question. What do we want to know about? You can then interpret that to say, this is how we should act on that. All those things should tie together really well. And you can work with your stakeholders and executives to actually determine those things. Don't be afraid to suggest those actions and how they relate to the insights that you shared.
Right. Well put. Give the suggestion. Don't be afraid at the office table, right? To sort of say, hey, this could solve a problem. I think that's great advice. I don't have anything super, powerful to wrap that up with, Zach. I think there's a lot of insight here, even for people to uncover, for people to go through. But I do want to say a huge thank you for being here. Let people know how they can get in touch with you, Zach. How can they reach out to you? What does that look like for you?
For sure. Well, I hope everybody found it useful. We are not closed door. So, you want to find us, go ahead and check us out at aureliuslab.com. Shoot us an email, hit us up on one of our social channels. We're always happy to talk about this stuff. We're always happy to share tips, advice, insights on how we see researchers trying to do great research. So feel free to reach out and keep the conversation going.
Yeah. Wonderful, Zach. And then from us too, here at Userlytics, we are also open door. We are in several countries all around the world, a few offices one office here in the North America, one in Europe as well. We've got contact information at userlytics.com. You can reach us at info@userlytics.com. We'll probably catch us at a bunch of events. There's a good chance you'll see Zach and I back together again on some sort of content video. So if you have any questions, reach out to us. Maybe we can even answer them live for you in the meantime. But that's all from us. Wishing everybody the very best in their UX testing journeys. And thanks for being here, everyone.